hand. Oh, you never want to hold my hand. Whoa, death. Sorry. Whoa, death. Won't you spare me over till another year? You okay, babe? I know these kind of things kind of scare you. But it's good that you're pushing through this, because I'm not going to do any of the things that you want, that threesome, until you do some of the things that I want. It's about compromising. That's what the therapist said. You know, if you do the things that I've asked, I don't have to tell nobody about this. Okay? This is what dreams are made of. That's what Lizzie McGuire taught us. Welcome! Hey, honeys! This is the Gothbilly episode. We're going to get into all kinds of stuff. Hell far. We're just going to talk about all of it. We'll get into a little bit of literature at some point. We'll touch on the history of goth, and we'll talk a little bit about overlaps in goth culture and hillbilly culture. Yeah, we're just going to go for it. I hope you're as excited as I am to probably get lost in the sauce at some point. Speaking of sauce, they do not sponsor this. I ain't getting nothing from this. I just bought a 4-pack of this Better Than Booze seltzer, and I swear to God, if you would have told me 3.5 years ago that this was better than booze, I'd be like, yeah. That sounds cool. And then I would have chugged, the pint of vodka that I had hidden in my closet underneath my platform shoes. But that's not what we're going for anymore, because we'll die. What is more goth than going sober? This stuff is actually delicious. It's got CBD and I think a little bit of THC. I don't know what the laws are around that. I think it's got to be under, let's see, it says on here something about it contains, no more than 2 or 0.3% THC. So it ain't much. Maybe you get a little something off of it. I think you might feel some of the CBD. And if not, it's just packaged in a way that I want to trick myself. I like to lie to myself about health benefits, especially when it's something like just drinking something that's fun to drink. If you're like, ooh, this feels like I'm getting a calming effect, and I don't have to go to the gym. This is just an easy way out. That's another thing, is I love this sober curious movement, because I'm behind any kind of sobriety. Any kind of cutting booze out of your life, I think, is healthy. I'm also not anti-booze, because most people aren't alcoholics. Most people don't have a shot of tequila and then the next day be like, I wonder how I can get myself in jail today. I'd really like to get finger banged by my ex-gym teacher. So I think I'm gonna drink 10 more of these and then black out in somebody else's driveway with Long John Silver's crunchies all over me. Most people don't do that. But there are some people. Do you get what I'm saying? We try not to be too cryptic here. Listen, this is the drink today. This is going to just provide a little bit of ambiance. The only thing that can make this better is if I had some of that reactive charcoal. And you see, I got me a little chalice here. Life is bleak, but I cherish myself. I delight in myself. Now, if you see me wigging out, then this was all in vain, because I'm not good on the pot stuff. I cannot do it. Here's the thing. This is why pot don't work for me, is because I have high thoughts without it. There ain't a day that goes by where I'm not talking to somebody and immediately I start being paranoid about the fact that I can't see my own face in that moment. Now, why is that problematic? It's not, but my brain is just, it's very, very good at finding how something could be wrong. It's classy like that. So I don't really need any aid in paranoia. Okay, it's built in. It's built in the wiring. Praise God. Hey, I wish I could get my cat on this. You want to be in this? You want to be a star? Have I not taught you anything but that fame is all that really matters in this life? We started off with a song that you know was made popular by Ralph Stanley. And that's because it was in the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack. And he's got that gaunt, willowy voice. And it was just so impactful, and people that had never heard of Ralph Stanley before became instant fans. And I'm glad, because he got that check. I heard from somebody that was like, used to go to church with him, and boy, he had that Cadillac that he drove, or no, he had a Benz. He had a Benz that he drove everywhere, like from his Oh Brother Where Art Thou money, and he deserved every penny and more. I was thinking about that song, and I went to check a few different sources about the origin of that song. And so they all say that it's attributed to this guy whose name was Lloyd Chandler. He was a Baptist preacher, but it was probably adapted from a folk song that already existed. This is, this is how much of the history of our region, the Appalachian region, goes. As you know, so much of this is reliant on oral history, which is by and far, unreliable, because you know the adage of playing the game of telephone, how quickly things get lost, and how quickly you can say, there went the red bird, and somebody comes back with like, grandma's tits are disgusting. It's just one of those things where we might never know the real origin, but Lloyd Chandler is who is agreed upon with most sources that has that first written down, oh death, won't you spare me over till another year. The point being with the oh death is like, it was kind of in the ether, and that's a cool thing about that time. And what I mean by that time is a time before you had instant access to who did what, where ideas were part of the air, right? Half-assed ideas, folklore was more a part of things. And people could grab those little specks out of the air, and then they could form a whole world, a whole piece, something complete. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes in our age of like ownership, we lose out on a lot of that. We lose out on some of the magic of just being like, I have an idea and I'm gonna let it go. Really speaking to myself here, because I'm a greedy little shit. I imagine a good number of you have seen a couple of different things, TikToks or reels or whatever, that I've made about how being a hillbilly is about as goth as you can get. Communities that come face to face with death on a regular basis, that are forced to think about it more. And because they are experiencing, some sort of oppression or a hardship, they've got more focus on the afterlife. So there was a lot of rumination about death in my family, but you have to realize that they're Pentecostals. And so on the other side is life for them, and a better life, right? It's better than this life. I mean, my grandma would talk about them streets of gold. That was as real to her as this chalice is to me. And this is pretty real. If you just met her, you were like, this woman cannot wait to die. I mean, she loved talking about heaven. And you really can't blame her either, really, can you? I mean, if you believe very literally that on the other side, existence is just like this, but 10 times better. It's just like this, but apparently you feel like you're on cocaine all the time. And I think that there's a poetry to it. So I don't like the way I said poetry. Let's do that again. There was a poetry to it. That was like poetry. And that wasn't very poetic. There was a poetry to it. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I will just say that it was both comforting and troubling, just right up until my grandmother died. I mean, every time I saw her, she would say, well, we'll see here, there, or in the air. The Lord might come and take me before then. And we're talking about, Grandma will be here at 7. You talking about you going to die before then? When you think about her death, a timely death in her 80s, and you're thinking about your own death as a child, and especially with the fact that if there is a heaven, right, that's all going on in the background. Is if there is a heaven, there is a place of eternal cocaine bliss, cocaine and gold and angelic hoes. Well, on the other side there is hell. I think that is something that plagued me and still does plague me. It permeates you, those things that you hear about, screamed about with such passion as a child. And these tent revivals, it's sticky. You can try to fill yourself with logic. And you can even try to fill yourself with other rich spiritual experiences that seem to negate the possibility that there could ever be a hell. So anyway, I digress, because I don't want to tear down anybody's faith, and I have my own. And I have my own experience too. But I think my point of that whole thing is like, there's an intrinsic gothness to these Pentecostals and even some of these like missionary Baptists, these religious sects, right, of Christianity, that a huge part of their preaching is focused on you're going to die. Remember there's a hell. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we would go to those either tent revivals or just, the revivals that will last like 3 weeks. And you're like, oh my God, thank God Carletta brought some goldfish tonight because we're going to be here. But just their favorite thing was like, make your calling and election sure. Just remember that there's hell, and just these vivid, vivid detail, describing in vivid detail to an 8-year-old how much them flames are going to hurt. And it never goes out, God. It never goes out as a fire that will not be quenched. And that's scary as fuck. I was a very thoughtful child, so I thought about it a lot. Okay, let's do a little goth history. I consider the spookies, the macabres, if you will, to be a stable facet of my personality. And it's of continual interest. There's always more that it gives. So I was at this party a week ago, and it was a goth prom, and we were all talking about our little subgenre of goth, like what is our subgenre, and somebody said that they were more of a mall goth, and then I started talking to this guy, and I was like, you sound like you're a little bit more in the emo space, and that's literally just because he slicked the hair down instead of up, I would like to know what goth means to you. And he was like, well, it's really just a vibe. And then I stabbed him repeatedly in front of everybody and ran. It does seem like a trite statement, but he's not wrong. It's an airy thing, right? When I say goth, you've got a lot of pictures that come to your head, but you've also got an ambiance, right? That I tried to create until I realized that it made me even more wrinkly than already to have like all these lights dimmed and like this one on. Cheers! So first off, the origin of the term goth doesn't have to do a ton with how we know goth now, right? Goth is derived from Visigoths. And the Visigoths were this Germanic tribe that took down Rome. And Gothic literature that we know sprung up in the Victorian era took the name of that, the Gothic. And it would provide like an aesthetic, thematic base for what would later become goth music. So we know the classic goth lit, and I love it because it's characterized by this atmospheric, dark, brooding, gloomy aesthetic. And the themes are usually macabre, dealing in the macabre. There's a lot of death, illness, tragedy. So we're thinking, you think Bram Stoker's Dracula. You even think Frankenstein. You think Jane Eyre, one of my personal favorites of all time. Of course, the Bronte sisters. Let's go into what we think of now as goth. Because if you just do your little Google search, it's going to say, well, it's a subculture of music. Fine. So the beginnings of what we know now as the musical subgenre, it dates back to that post-punk. A lot of the aesthetic, right, is inspired by that Gothic lit. And so a lot of other groups are going to spring off from that in terms of like sound, but definitely aesthetic. I think we're thinking of aesthetics then. Perhaps the defining moment is when Bauhaus came out in 1979 with that long-ass song, Bela Lugosi's Dead. Bela Lugosi's Dead is talking about the king of Scream, if you will. By the way, this is, whoa, did you see how excited I got about that? This is that certified Bela Lugosi cape. Now, I say certified, I don't really know what that means. It was just a way to justify paying $130 for this cape. And I don't do stuff like that. But it was like this Bela Lugosi certified. Well, the way I say that makes it sound like he rose up and was like, certified. This one? Not that one. I don't know, some studio that put out these costumes, right? But it is well made. I'm kind of proud of it, so I want to flap my wings. I saw today, guys, there was a bat just hanging his precious little self upside down, and he had his little tongue out. And I thought, God, if I ain't that bat right now in 2 weighted blankets, waking up with crust on the outside of my mouth, crust on my eyes. And he just looked happy as a damn clam. He looked happy as a bat. And that's what I want to be. I want to be happy as a bat, wrapped up all in himself. So maybe this is my cape era. There's something that has been named in retrospect as proto-goth. And that's where things like the Velvet Underground, the Doors, Screamin' Jay Hawkins, maybe Screamin' Jay Hawkins kind of fits in there. I mean, he's kind of a founder. Into the proto-goth, I'd like to throw into the hat a little Appalachian proto-goth. And this is a song called The Knoxville Girl. This is so fucked. I'm sure many of you all know this. Get ready. I mean, trigger warning, dude. I'm telling you right now. I met a little girl in Knoxville, a town we all know well. And every Sunday evening, out in her town I'd dwell. We went to take an evening walk about a mile from town. I picked a stick up off the ground and knocked that fair girl down. She fell down on her bended knees, for mercy she did cry. Oh, Willie dear, don't kill me here, I'm unprepared to die. She never spoke another word, I only beat her more, until the ground around me within her blood did flow. I took her by her golden curls and drug her round and round, throwing her into the river that flows through Knoxville town. Go down, you Knoxville girl with the dark and rolling eyes. Go down, you Knoxville girl. You can never be my bride. I started back to Knoxville, got there about midnight. My mother, she was worried and woke up in a fright. saying, "Dear son, what have you done to bloody your clothes so?" I told my anxious mother I was bleeding at my nose. I called for me a candle to light myself to bed. I called for me a handkerchief to bind my aching head. Rolled and tumbled the whole night through, as troubles was for me like flames of hell around my bed and in my eyes could see. They carried me down to Knoxville and put me in a cell. My friends all tried to get me out, but none could go my bail. I'm here to waste my life away down in this dirty old jail because I murdered that Knoxville girl, the girl I love so well. God, dear Heavenly Father, I did not mean to put those words back to back. If you're there, forgive me. God, please let these people think I'm funny. Okay. Bye. This song is insane. This song is goth as fuck. And there are plenty of bluegrass songs like that. Hey, you know what? Hey, Google. Play Knoxville Girl. And see how happy that is? That is like as eerie as a swing set swinging. Home I dwell. Watch out, sis. You drink some? I know. It's bad. They're bad. My dear, I'm unprepared to die. Too much, too much. Okay, Google, stop. Violence. Let's just brood. That's really where I want to live. Let's not blow our load right here. Or do, you know what I'm saying? Get that hand up here so we can see them. We're gonna do some hillbilly writers now. I'm just gonna celebrate some hillbilly writers that write kind of goth. Neither of these that I've chosen selection from are exclusively gothic writers. I don't even think that they would lump themselves into that. This is me. This is how I read it. I see some of that atmospheric overlap. The first person I'm going to read from is actually a poet named John Ratty. There's not much out about him. He was born in West Virginia. He did a lot of studies on the East Coast. He only wrote 2 poetry books, and even in this one, he was like, I plan to write a great deal more about Appalachia. But as far as things were published, I mean, he had an individual thing here and there, but he became a priest. And it's weird because he writes, maybe it's not weird, because he writes so much about sexuality, and it's just pretty dark stuff. This poetry book actually is called A Remembered Darkness. This poem is called Zephyr Had Death. Zephyr had death with her in her kitchen, where canaries pecked out their lives in green enameled cages. She had death, locked in the room of her long dead mother, locked in a carved coconut sent from Hawaii, nested in the cellophane grass of an old Easter basket, born in the southern hills where snow came little, but strange. She whispered death to me as we drove through an early snowstorm. High on a wolfish ridge, she spoke of her first husband, a consumptive, who had a tight, white chest and died young. Hearing that pure air could cure him, they lived his last spring on a mountaintop in a tent. Wrapped in blankets, he lay outside by the campfire on good days. Zephyr sat by him, her hair drawn back, her Indian cheekbones chapped by the cold, trying to draw the sickness out of his chest. She tucked her long skirt under her for warmth. One morning it snowed. He sat by the fire while Zephyr boiled water over a can of sterno. He felt the cold touch his face, and he crawled over to her. He strangled to death, Zephyr said, bleeding his life into the folds of her khaki wool skirt. I mean, maybe to you all it's very clear and I'm just an idiot what happened. He's put a lot of tension. You know, he breaks up his things to where they're pretty even lines, right? It's like fa-sa, sa-sa, sa-sa, sa-sa. You know, he's pretty good with his beats to where it feels a little bit like that Hitchcock, just those like little staccato string. I can't even remember how the melody is, but it's not really melodic. So anyway, you get what I'm saying is like there's a tension that he builds within these lines. And to me, that made it kind of a little bit of a mystery. Like she's telling him that he's relying on her as the narrator. She still has death with her. Does that mean grief? Does that mean like she is a deadly woman? I don't know. Really, here I'm going to cut to the chase. I don't know if she killed this man. Zephyr said, bleeding his life into the folds of her khaki wool skirt. Now, you can just read that as, you know, he died in her arms, so to speak, in her skirt. I don't know, maybe in her cooter. Maybe this all of a sudden became a graphic novel. I just realized that he just went down on her and he died there. He strangled to death. A life cut too short by pussy. Once again, check out Genre T if you kind of liked that. He's got, I would say probably Bukowski is one of his influences, which I'm up in the air about Bukowski. I like what I like of his. The rest of it I just leave. The next one I'm very, very excited about because this is a friend of mine. Her name is Cheyenne Leonardo. She lives in Scott County, Tennessee. She's traveled all over, though. Girl's been in Germany. She taught people. She was an English teacher in Germany. I think she also spent some time in France. Came back to Scott County, though. And it was the sweetest thing when we saw each other after a long, long time via social media and then text. She said that the black sheep of Scott County are more special than all the black sheep she saw in all the rest of the world. So she's quite the romantic. I don't think she minds me saying that. This is from her second poetry collection called Angel Falls. And Angel Falls is a place in Scott County, a location. And obviously you can see that the obvious other meaning of that. I'll say this. A lot of her stuff is in, quite a bit of her stuff is in response to another poet. And I always find that fun when poets do that because, you know, we're in constant communication anyway within poetry. You're in constant communication with the past and with poems that came before you. And she just acknowledges that right up front, and I love it. This brief tragedy of flesh after Emily Dickinson, not lying in a blackened shroud. Dear death is painted white, at sunlit fire's mercy not, but at the whim of ice. The moment when the branches bend beneath unwieldy snow, once gentle, gestures from above have an oppressive glow. The weighing down reminds us how earth gives in great supply, but there's a line within this life. To cross it is to die. We watch the angels as they fall, expose the withered bones, laid bare in sacred circles where our spirits feel at home. The heaviness of winter says the body is a sheath. When this brief tragedy of flesh weaves breath into a wreath. To hang upon the door of mort, our purpose will be clear. For now, our task is just to learn how to enjoy it here. So she provides some relief at the end, but you can feel the gothic undertones there. And but she has this ability to go deep within the earth, and that's what makes her so special to me. We're chopping things around because I'm annoyed. I want to give this a good try. Let's try it one more time. A song sits in that corner, reposing like a racing by, a symphony for sorrow to a drunkard's grave. She's sending out her tendrils, invading every nook, and I am lurching for the melody that had me shook. I need a hand to mute the empty strings, raven carols cresting madness wings. Lay me down to sleep, a banquet set for me. It is but shards and stones from an enemy. We saunter through the weight room, a sad and topping circus, and I fumble for the faces that mock us. Can you hear those lovely strains? I give up the ghost of broken wings. Prayers aren't prudent, I need pills to pay the bliss I borrowed yesterday. That song seems a little upbeat, even times a little baroque, but it's about delirium tremens. It's called DTs, and it's why I gotta drink this shit, but not got to, get to, of course, because it's better than booze. It's much better. I mean, I'm a real full-blown alcoholic, but yeah, I had delirium tremens, and I could hear what I thought was a radio playing. I just could swear I could hear this beautiful symphony playing. I was like, why are they playing the symphony at all times? Remember, this is all here. But it's as real as me speaking to you now at that time. The radio station ended up switching to Loretta Lynn at some point. But yeah, that's about that. So I don't know. Felt fitting. Wow, 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 wow. Whoa! Hey, how creepy is this, by the way? Okay, cool. Burnt my nose. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the rock, and let the God, and let the knock, and let the fod, let the knock, and let the rock, and let the rock, and let the cock, and let the smock, and let the dock, and let the knowledge, and God. Dun dun, fa-da-dun, shun-chun, ba-da-dun, bon-ton, ba-da-bon, bon-ton, da-da-ton, don-ton, da-da-ton, ton-ton, song, 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 song. God help it. Lord God, don't let my mom ever see this. But you hold my candle. I don't see how you're not feeling embarrassed as a man, that you provide nothing to this experience. Well, frankly, dear, I'm going to need you to give a little more, because the performance right now is giving dead. It's giving deceased. It's giving gone. It's giving perished. It's giving slaughtered. It's giving killed. Okay? Okay.
And here's the thing. Is that we got our own problems, don't we? We got our own issues, huh? Eh? I don't talk about mine a lot. I don't talk about the darkness was inside me. That was inside me. They brought me in. They didn't even look at me like a person. They looked at me like some kind of animal. Oh no, I felt like a dog. They thought they knew the darkness. They thought they knew the darkness that was there. It wasn't the one they were looking for. It was much more of a blank darkness. The kind of darkness that happens so long ago that feels more like a space than a thing. Yeah.
And that was Paul. And I appreciate you, Paul. I appreciate you for visiting us. I feel like there's another guy that's wanting to come and show up. I feel like somebody else is trying to visit us. I feel like something's wanting to possess me. Now, whoever you are, whatever you want, hurry up, make it quick. Scott County Issues, pick up, make it quick. If you know, you know. Hey, I got an idea. Uh-huh.
I'm a genius, I am, I tell you what. Hi there, my name is Tabitha Pemberton, and I work down there at the school. I live up Straight Fork. We got 2 sons. One of them's, we think he might have a peanut allergy, so we're having to do all them tests. We're having to go over Knoxville a lot. And it's just hard on us. We're just having the hardest time getting him straightened out. Anyway, this weekend I think we're going to go up Sam's and get the Kraft macaroni and cheese. Now, I'd rather make like a homemade Velveeta, but for some reason he likes that old cheap junk. Yeah, I think we're going to go on vacation this year. I think we might end up going to Myrtle Beach. And that'll be good for the kids because they haven't been there. Well, actually, Bryson has, but that's okay. But yeah, I died 28 years ago. Was it 28 years ago? Oh my God, Tim, that is crazy. There ain't no way it was 28 years ago. Yeah, when that happened, just, things change. But for the most part, everything's just the same.
All right. Thank you, Miss Pemberton. Thank you for entertaining us for a moment. I got a couple more things. I've got a couple of family history things that, holy shit, I'm scared about this copper. I don't know. If this house burns down, oh, I would have been a clown if this house burns down. I am going to tell you really quick a couple stories about my family. Goth-like stories. I just want to set this up in a way that makes it seem like I'm trying to be as objective as possible about this situation. Like, these are my family members. I could just lay into the idea that it all was real, that my family had this supernatural ability to contact the beyond. But I don't know. I don't know that. I don't feel comfortable saying that. And I also do not feel comfortable saying that all these people were crazy, right? I mean, I think that's such a boring thing to say. Now I'm playing with candle wax. Cool. I think these were some complex situations going on. I had a great-grandmother that I never met named Ollie Mae. She had visions, and my great-grandfather was abusive. Even when she was pregnant, one time he beat her up so bad that her eye popped out of its socket. So I'm so sorry. Just trigger warning. This is going to continue. She had visions of things. Visions would come to her, and some of them just had stunning accuracy, and they just would call her a seer and reckon that she kenned a lot of things that nobody else could. And for instance, she had a lot of premonitions about her own death when she was helping my great-grandfather, George, plant the last garden before she died, she said to him, I'm going to help you plant this garden, but I won't see its harvest. She wasn't going to reap anything from this. And I don't know if he blew it off or not, you know. Probably thought, man, she's being artistic again. I wish she'd get out a pen and paper and stop hexing me. But she said that, and she didn't. And one day she said to him, you've been so mean to me that you're going to have to piece my coffin back together. And when she fell off a horse, she was pregnant, set up gangrene in her, and sure enough, her coffin busted open. They had to put it back together again before they buried her. My mom's written a lot of like kind of mountain folk songs, but they're also spiritual. You know, she's a very spiritual person. But she wrote a song about her, and it's like, Dolly was a mountain woman, George was her mountain man. He'd given to his anger and strike her with his hand. I cannot fault my grandmother, hard choices she did make. She would not leave her children the commitment she had made. Oh man, I'll help you plant this garden, but this promise I make, I shall not ever eat its harvest. I'll be gone away, and when I die, you'll have to labor, piece my coffin too, and from the anguish you inflict, your penance will ensue. And so it's got them Celtic vibes, you know. She wrote one about Emily. She was widowed very young, and so she lived on this mountain, and they just said that she was continually blessed with that miracle of the loaves and the fish, because she didn't, you know, she lived on this pension. She barely had any money, and she was able to feed so many people. But they called her a woman kept by God, like the kept woman, but the lover was God. And the song she wrote about her is like, Emily, Emily, acquainted with sorrow, acquainted with grief, Emily, Emily, spoken often by others, that woman kept by God. And then I don't remember, your sweet Dawn died at 38 in a coal mine explosion. 3 brothers wait and work, they met old death together. I can't remember. It's the boys died in a coal mine explosion. My mother has seen and heard very many things. Some of those things have come to fruition, and I don't quite know exactly what I think that means, but I certainly think there are things that she has that are knowings, that she is very much in tune with things that other people aren't. And she just calls it her knowing. I remember being captured by The Shining when I read it, because of the way he had written the hotel keeper, talking to the boy, saying, you had the shining on you. And that's what my mom calls the knowing. The mantle of knowing. I always thought that was pretty poetic about my mom, that she had these things that she rhythmically just felt, and she would just say over and over again for the talisman, for the representation of something, like a globe outside of herself almost. Okay, let's think. Do we want to do anything else? Goth. Oh, let's get some goth music picks. I think the assignment is to really go on a deep dive of Cocteau Twins, because somehow they were able to balance this dark and light so well. Everything feels like Swan Lake, like a wash of Swan Lake, because it's this dark theme, but it's soaring and dancing. I'm just astounded by what they were able to pull off. And it feels so effortless, because it's also just, you listen to it and you're like, well, this is a vibe for sure. I would just say do a Cocteau Twins deep dive. Don't just do Heaven or Las Vegas. There were so many rich tones in here, and then also it really is just like a treasure trove. That's a great way to say it, because it's just jewels after jewels and piles, and it's dancey, and there's some Baroque quality to it, and there's just textures. That's what I love about this. That's what I was going to say is the again with the kind of synesthesia of goth, if you will, where we're like, oh, I can everything. There's so many textures in it, probably from the fashion aesthetic, but sometimes somehow the fact that people were trying to make those visuals into sounds, I feel like we begin to have a little bit more of that synesthesia in this day. I think that the Cocteau Twins album Treasure really provides like a synesthesia of sorts, because you really can like feel you can feel the mesh and the lace and the mesh and lace. I don't know, and you can like kind of smell an incense to it, but also a rose. You know, it's fascinating. It's rich, brilliant. Of course, it's called Treasure. Cheers to you. Cheers to blue. Cheers to you who do what you do to the fool list with your crew and your newfound boo. Keep it country, keep it weird, and keep it trashy. I think we're going to ask Pawpaw to come on here.
What you doing, old boy? How's it going? I'm better than I deserve. Come bring me that there's a cup in there that's got some of that coffee. It's got some of that coffee from earlier. And if you just bring it over here, you want something? You want something? Huh? What'd you say, honey? What'd you say? I can't hear him. He ain't. You know he don't talk too good. They said Jens is wanting me to come on here and talk about stuff that's been going on. Do what? A goth. A golf? Are you just going golfing? I don't know. A moth. What is it? Said something about talking about death. And that is something, you know, sometimes I wish it'd come on and come. I get tired of watching the same show over and over again. They go on jabbering, you know. They ain't got much to say, and a lot of these shows really ain't no count no more. So sometimes I wish, now I would miss my kids and the greats. Of course, there won't be no missing when you get up there. They just ain't really a thing. What was we talking about? Oh yeah, but dying, and it just ain't something I think about a whole lot. I don't run around thinking about it. I wouldn't get nothing done. If I went around thinking about that, I wouldn't have time to think about nothing else. And I reckon I ain't got too much time to waste. This guy, hey look, now I tell you what, buddy, you mind pull up that chair. Now son, we're gonna have to get you out there working. 'Cause you're getting a little bit of lazy bone on you. It's what I've observed. You just think about it. You might want to come work maybe a day or two out there. And we get you, if nothing else, we get you weed eating and brush hogging that field too down there. Here's one of my grands coming in there. That's one of my grands, Brandon. How you doing? Did you work today? All right. Well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go hang out with him for a minute. We might have us a bologna. Hey, you want a bologna sandwich? Hey, Brandon.
Yeah.
You want?
I'll never be able to act with you.